James Whitmore came home unannounced. Nobody knew he was back. The penthouse was supposed to be quiet, it was always quiet when he was gone. But then he heard something he'd never heard before. Laughter. Children's laughter. His chest tightened. He didn't know what it meant. For distinct giggles echoing from somewhere deep in the apartment, bouncing off marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. His heart started pounding. He moved toward the sound, following it through the hallway, his expensive Italian shoes silent against the floor, his hands trembling. It was coming from the kitchen. He pushed open the door and what he saw stopped his entire world. Before we continue, if you believe these children deserve to be loved and cared for, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. James Whitmore was a billionaire. Pharmaceutical empire, self-made. He bought a failing drug company at 28 and turned it into Whitmore Biotech, worth billions. Everything he touched turned to gold, FDA approvals, groundbreaking cancer treatments, patents that changed modern medicine. But money couldn't bring back what he'd lost. His wife, Rebecca, died during childbirth. Emergency C-section. Quadruplets. The delivery went wrong. Massive hemorrhaging. The doctors tried everything, blood transfusions, emergency surgery, every protocol in the book. James held her hand as she slipped away, her brown eyes looking at him one last time. "Take care of our girls," she whispered. Then she was gone. He never got to hold all 4 babies together with her. Never got that family photo he'd imagined. Just 4 tiny incubators in the NICU and a funeral 3 days later. At the hospital, something broke inside James. 4 identical baby girls, Ivy, Rose, Jane, and June. 18 inches long, 6 pounds each, brown eyes just like their mothers. Every time he looked at them, he saw what they cost him. The trade his heart couldn't accept. Rebecca alive, laughing, planning their future. Or these 4 tiny strangers. His wife had chosen them. The universe had chosen them. And James couldn't forgive it. He hired help immediately. Round-the-clock nannies, the best money could buy. Night nurses, day nurses, feeding specialists. But he couldn't bond with them. Couldn't hold them without feeling his chest cave in. They survived. Rebecca didn't. That equation haunted him every single day. 16 months passed like that. 7 nannies quit in that time. Not because of pay, James paid triple the market rate, offered bonuses, benefits that would make anyone stay. They quit because caring for quadruplet toddlers was overwhelming. For diaper changes every 3 hours. For bottles. For crying spells that triggered each other like dominoes. For bedtimes that never synced. The chaos was relentless. But the real reason they left was James himself. His cold detachment. His absence. The way he'd come home late, walk past his daughters without looking, and disappear into his study. Nanny after nanny tried to connect him to the girls. "Mr. Whitmore, June took her first steps today." He'd nod without looking up from his laptop. That's good. No emotion. No interest. Just exhaustion and a darkness that swallowed everything. So James did what broken men do. He ran. He buried himself in work, 16-hour days, business trips every other week. Board meetings in Switzerland, regulatory negotiations in Japan, the biggest merger of his career in New York, acquiring his main competitor for $3.2 billion. 80-hour weeks. Red-eye flights. Hotel rooms in different time zones. Because sitting in that penthouse felt like suffocating. His home in downtown Chicago overlooked Lake Michigan, 6,000 square feet of floor-to-ceiling windows, imported marble, custom everything. 4 bedrooms for the girls, each decorated by a professional designer. A playroom bigger than most apartments. Smart home technology that controlled everything with voice commands. But it was the loneliest place on earth. Every toy, every bottle, every pink blanket reminded him of Rebecca. Of what should have been. Of the life they'd planned that died with her. One evening, Mrs. Peterson approached him. She'd been the housekeeper for 5 years, hired when James and Rebecca first bought the penthouse, back when they were planning their future. Elderly now, exhausted, her face lined with worry. "Mr. Whitmore, I can't manage this alone anymore." Her voice was gentle but desperate. "For babies, they're not babies anymore, they're toddlers. They run, they climb, they need constant attention. I'm 72 years old. I need help. Can I hire someone?" James barely looked up from his laptop. He was reviewing merger documents, catching a flight to Tokyo in 6 hours. "Hire whoever you need, Mrs. Peterson. Just handle it." 3 days later, Clara Mitchell walked through the door. 28 years old, from the south side of Chicago. Strong, confident, with a warm smile that lit up rooms. She'd raised her 3 younger siblings after their mother died of breast cancer when Clara was 19. She understood chaos, 3 kids under 10, working 2 jobs, putting herself through community college at night. She understood grief. She knew what it felt like to keep breathing when your heart was shattered into pieces you couldn't put back together. James saw Clara once in the hallway during her first week. She was carrying a basket of folded laundry, humming softly, some old gospel hymn. She nodded respectfully when she saw him. "Good evening, Mr. Whitmore." He didn't even look at her. Just brushed past her on his way to his study, his mind already on the conference call waiting for him. Another employee. Another face. It didn't matter. But his daughters noticed. Clara didn't try to fix the girls. Didn't force them to smile or perform or meet developmental milestones. She just showed up every single day. Patient. Present. Steady. She learned their different personalities quickly. Ivy, the cautious observer, always watching before trying anything new. Rose, the fearless one, first to reach for new foods, new toys, new adventures. Jane, the sensitive soul, quick to tears but also quick to forgive. June, the natural leader, always orchestrating her sisters, deciding who sat where, who played with what. For identical faces, but for completely different souls. In the first week, the girls just observed Clara from a distance. She sang while she cleaned their playroom, talked to them like they understood every word, never demanded anything in return. In the second week, Rose crept closer during snack time. Clara made eating fun, arranged apple slices into smiley faces, turned grapes into choo-choo trains, made silly voices for the carrots. Rose giggled. Actually giggled. Mrs. Peterson, folding laundry in the corner, almost dropped everything. In the third week, Ivy left a stuffed bunny on Clara's cleaning cart. Clara picked it up like it was the most precious thing in the world, hugged it gently, handed it back with reverence. "Is this your friend?" "She's so beautiful, Ivy." "What's her name?" Ivy's eyes lit up. Just a little. But it was there. Week after week, something was happening. Something quiet. Something sacred. Something James never saw because he was never home. The girls started following Clara from room to room, tiny shadows in matching pajamas. Started babbling to her in their own language. By week 5, they were using real words. More. Please. Clara. By week 6, they were sleeping through the night for the first time in their entire lives. By week 8, they were dancing. Clara didn't announce any of it. She just loved them gently, patiently, the way her mother had loved her before cancer took her away. She understood that healing takes time. That trust is built in small, ordinary moments, folding laundry together, singing silly songs, reading the same picture book 17 times in a row because that's what they needed. Mrs. Peterson watched in quiet amazement but said nothing to James. What was the point? He was in Switzerland negotiating with European regulators. Then Japan, launching a new drug line across Asia. Then New York, closing the biggest deal of his career. 8 weeks away. Exhausted. Stressed. Emptier than ever. James wasn't supposed to come home for 3 more days. The merger was done, signed, finalized, celebrated with a press release that made headlines in the Wall Street Journal. His team wanted to go out, pop champagne at some Manhattan rooftop bar, toast their victory over craft cocktails and corporate war stories. But something inside him said go. Just go home. An unexplainable pull, urgent and insistent. He booked a last-minute flight from JFK to O'Hare right there in the boardroom. Didn't call ahead. Didn't text Mrs. Peterson. Just grabbed his briefcase, told his team he'd celebrate later, and left. When he walked through the front door of the penthouse 3 hours later, everything was quiet. Like always. He expected nothing different. The sun was setting over Lake Michigan, golden light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in warm amber. Family photos lined the entryway wall, Rebecca smiling, radiant, 7 months pregnant with the quadruplets, her hands cradling her belly. James looked away. He always looked away. Then he heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter. His chest tightened. He stood frozen in the marble entryway, his briefcase slipping from his hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the silence. It couldn't be. His daughters didn't laugh. They cried. They screamed. They existed in perpetual chaos, bottles thrown, food rejected, tears without reason. But they didn't laugh. Not like this. Not with such pure, unrestrained, coordinated joy. James moved toward the sound, his heart hammering against his ribs, his breath catching in his throat. Down the hallway. Past the living room with its unused toys and designer furniture. The laughter was getting louder, mixed with music. Singing. His daughters were singing. Actual words, actual melody, actual harmony. He reached the kitchen door. His hand trembled as he pushed it open. What he saw inside stopped his entire world. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, bright and impossibly warm. 3 of his daughters, Ivy, Rose, and Jane, were sitting on the black granite counter, their little legs dangling, wearing matching pink dresses with pink bows in their curly hair. They were clapping their hands in perfect rhythm, giggling uncontrollably, their faces absolutely glowing. And June, wearing a yellow bow that stood out like sunshine, was perched on Clara's shoulder, her tiny hands tangled in the woman's dark curls. They were all singing together. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Their voices filled the kitchen with music James had forgotten could exist. Clara stood in the center of it all, radiant, smiling wider than seemed possible, conducting them like they were her own personal symphony. For 3 seconds, James felt something break open inside him. Relief so powerful it felt like his chest might cave in, like every muscle in his body was releasing tension it had held for 18 months. His daughters were alive. Actually alive. Thriving. Happy. Laughing. After a year and a half of emotional death, of robotic feedings and mechanical diaper changes and existences that felt more like survival than living, they were singing. Joy flooded through him, pure and overwhelming, a gratitude so intense it made his eyes burn. Maybe everything would be okay. Maybe they'd survive this after all. Maybe Rebecca's sacrifice hadn't been for nothing. Then something else rose up. Fast. Hot. Ugly. Jealousy. Shame. Rage. This woman, this stranger he'd barely looked at, barely acknowledged in the hallway, had done what he couldn't. She'd brought his daughters back to life. While he was closing billion-dollar deals and flying across continents, signing papers that made headlines and shaking hands with executives, she was here. Loving them. Healing them. Being the parent he should have been. And he hated her for it. Hated her for succeeding where he'd failed. Hated her for making it look so effortless, so natural. Hated himself most of all. What the hell is going on here? His voice exploded across the kitchen like a gunshot. The singing stopped instantly. June's face crumpled, her smile collapsing into confusion. Clara stumbled backward, her eyes wide, her hands immediately moving to steady June as she carefully, protectively lifted her off her shoulders and set her down gently on the floor. Ivy, Rose, and Jane froze on the counter, their smiles disappearing like someone had flipped a switch. Fear replaced joy in their identical brown eyes. Mr. Whitmore, Clara's voice was quiet, steady, but James could see her trembling. This is completely inappropriate. James's voice cracked with barely controlled rage. You were hired to help Mrs. Peterson with cleaning and basic childcare, not to turn my kitchen into some kind of daycare circus. Putting my daughters on counters? Carrying them around like that? What if one of them fell? What if something happened? Nothing happened, sir. I was being careful. You're fired. The word came out cold. Final. Like a death sentence carved in ice. Pack your things. Leave. Now. Clara stood there for a moment, her hands gripping the edge of the granite counter, knuckles white. Her eyes were wet, tears gathering at the edges, but she didn't argue. Didn't beg. Didn't defend herself. She just nodded slowly, with a dignity that somehow made everything worse. Yes, sir. She walked past James with her head high, shoulders straight, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. She didn't look back. The quadruplets didn't make a sound. Clara had taught them, when something scary happens, you hold hands. You find each other. You stay together. They climbed down from the counter slowly, carefully, their little hands reaching for the edge, their feet finding the floor one by one. And then they found each other. For pairs of small hands intertwining on the kitchen floor, fingers gripping tight. Their faces went blank. Empty. Like someone had reached inside and flipped a switch, turning off all the light Clara had spent 8 weeks bringing to life. They looked at their father, really looked at him, and James saw it in their identical brown eyes. Fear. His own daughters were afraid of him. Ivy's lip trembled but no sound came out. Rose gripped her sister's hands tighter, her knuckles white for a toddler. Jane's eyes filled with tears that spilled silently down her round cheeks, falling onto her pink dress. June just stared at him, unblinking, like he was a monster who'd invaded their safe space and destroyed it. Then, still holding hands in a perfect line, they turned and walked out of the kitchen together. Their bare feet patted softly against the marble floor, a sound so quiet it was almost nothing. But it echoed in James's chest like thunder. The room fell silent. James stood there alone in the golden sunlight. The pink dresses Clara had been preparing for tomorrow, perfectly folded, perfectly pressed, were still sitting on the counter. The kitchen that had been filled with music and joy 30 seconds ago now felt like a tomb. The sunlight that had seemed so warm when he first opened the door now felt harsh. Accusing. Spotlighting his failure. His legs felt weak. He grabbed the edge of the counter to steady himself, his knuckles going white against the black granite. What did I just do? His voice was barely a whisper, swallowed by the emptiness. Mrs. Peterson appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale, stricken, her hand pressed against her chest like her heart was breaking. "Mr. Whitmore?" Her voice shook with something between anger and grief. Those girls were happy. For the first time since they were born, they were genuinely, truly happy. And you just? She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't find words for what she'd witnessed. James turned to face her, his jaw tight. She was being reckless. Putting them on counters. She was loving them. Mrs. Peterson's voice rose, something she'd never done in 5 years of working for him. Her eyes were wet, her hands trembling at her sides. She was giving them what you won't. What you can't. And you destroyed it in 10 seconds. James opened his mouth to argue, to defend himself, to explain. But nothing came out. Because she was right. Every word was true, and they both knew it. He sank into a chair, his head falling into his hands, his fingers gripping his hair. The house was silent again. The way it had been for 18 months. Cold. Dead. Empty. And this time, it was entirely his fault. That night, James sat alone in his study. The room was dark except for the brass lamp on his desk, casting long shadows across leather-bound books he never read and awards he didn't remember receiving. A glass of whiskey sat untouched in his hand, amber liquid catching the light. He stared at the photo on the shelf, Rebecca, radiant and glowing, 7 months pregnant, her hands cradling her belly, smiling at the camera with a joy so pure it hurt to look at. For tiny lives growing inside her. For lives that survived while she didn't. "What have I done, Rebecca?" His voice cracked in the empty room. "Why did I do that?" Silence answered him. The same silence that had filled this penthouse for 18 months. The same silence he'd created today by destroying the one person who'd broken through it. There was a soft knock at the door. Mrs. Peterson entered slowly, closing the door behind her with a quiet click. She didn't sit down. Just stood there with her arms crossed, looking at him the way a mother looks at a child who's done something terribly, unforgivably wrong. "They were sleeping through the night, Mr. Whitmore." Her voice was gentle but firm, each word deliberate. James looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "What? Your daughters?" For the first time in their entire lives, all 4 of them were sleeping through the night. Every single night for the past 3 weeks. No crying. No wake-ups. Clara had them on a routine. The glass slipped from James's hand. Whiskey spilled across the mahogany desk in a spreading amber stain, dripping onto the Persian rug below. He didn't move to clean it. Just stared at Mrs. Peterson like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Clara's been here for 8 weeks, Mrs. Peterson continued, her voice steady despite the tears gathering in her eyes. "In that time, she taught them to eat vegetables, broccoli, carrots, things they used to throw on the floor. She's potty training them. Ivy and Rose are almost there. They were learning words, Mr. Whitmore. Full sentences. Please, thank you, I love you. They made you a card last week." James's throat tightened. "A card? We love Daddy." Clara helped them with the letters. Drew little hearts around the words. "It's in the playroom, tucked into Ivy's toy box. You never saw it because you were in New York closing your merger." James's hands started shaking. He pressed them flat against the desk, whiskey soaking into his shirt cuffs. 8 weeks. 8 weeks of miracles and why didn't anyone tell me? Mrs. Peterson's voice was soft but cut like a blade. "You were never here to tell, Mr. Whitmore. You were in Switzerland for 2 weeks, then Japan for 10 days, then New York for a month. Clara asked me to send you updates, videos of the girls, photos, voice recordings. I forwarded every single one to your email." She paused, letting the weight settle. "You never responded. Not once." James covered his face with his hands, his shoulders beginning to shake. "Oh God. Oh God, Mrs. Peterson, I destroyed everything. They were healing. Actually healing. And I had no idea." His voice broke completely. "What kind of father am I?" The next morning, James woke to complete silence. No crying. No chaos. No tiny feet running down hallways or sippy cups clattering to the floor. Nothing. Just an eerie, unnatural quiet that made his chest tighten with dread. He walked to the nursery, still in his wrinkled dress shirt from yesterday, and found something that broke him completely. All 4 girls were sitting in a perfect row on the floor, holding hands, staring at the door. Waiting. Their pink pajamas were still on, their hair unbrushed, their faces blank and expressionless. They sat completely still, like little statues, their eyes fixed on the doorway with an intensity that made James's stomach drop. Mrs. Peterson stood in the corner, her own eyes red and swollen. "They've been there since dawn," she whispered. "They refused breakfast. Refused to move. They're waiting for Clara," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "She told them she'd come back tomorrow to finish teaching them a new song. They don't understand that you fired her. They think she's just late." James knelt in front of them, his knees hitting the soft carpet. "Hey, girls. How about we have some breakfast? I'll make pancakes. Your mom's recipe. Nothing. For pairs of brown eyes stared past him, through him, focused on the door behind him. Like he was invisible. Like he didn't exist. Like he was just an obstacle between them and the person they were actually waiting for. Rose's bottom lip quivered. Jane's shoulders started shaking with silent tears that streamed down her face. But still, they held hands and waited. The unity was devastating, for toddlers who'd learned coordination from love, now using it to protest its absence. Clara had to go away for a while. James's voice cracked, the lie bitter on his tongue. June finally looked at him. Her eyes were hollow, accusing, ancient with a betrayal no 18-month-old should understand. Then she looked away. Back to the door. Dismissing him completely. James tried to pick up Ivy, the cautious one, the observer. She went rigid in his arms, her small body stiff and unresponsive, every muscle tensed against his touch. He set her back down carefully, his hands shaking. She immediately took her sister's hands again, reforming the chain he'd broken, closing the circle that deliberately excluded him. James stood there, watching his daughters stage a silent, coordinated protest. They'd learned unity from Clara. Learned to hold each other through hard things. Learned that together they were stronger. And now they were using it to show him exactly what he'd destroyed. The silence was more devastating than any crying, any tantrum, any chaos. More accusatory than any words they didn't yet have. They'd learned to trust. To hope. To love. And he'd taught them it wasn't safe. James left the nursery, his chest so tight he could barely breathe, his throat burning with unshed tears. He found Mrs. Peterson in the hallway, her hand pressed against the wall like she needed it to stay upright. "Where does Clara live?" Mrs. Peterson hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Mr. Whitmore. Please, Mrs. Peterson." His voice was raw, desperate. "I need to fix this." She studied his face for a long moment, searching for something, sincerity, maybe, or genuine remorse. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders sagging with exhaustion. "The South Side. I'll get you the address." James drove into the South Side that afternoon, a world away from his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. The neighborhoods changed as he drove south, glass towers giving way to brick walk-ups, boutique coffee shops replaced by corner stores with barred windows. Clara's apartment building was modest, paint peeling from window frames, concrete steps cracked and uneven. He climbed to the third floor, his expensive shoes echoing in the stairwell, and knocked. A teenage boy opened the door, tall, guarded, maybe 17. Clara's younger brother Marcus. He looked James up and down, taking in the tailored suit that cost more than a month's rent, the polished Italian leather shoes, the Rolex on his wrist. His jaw tightened. "I'm looking for Clara Mitchell." "You're the guy who fired her." Marcus's voice was cold, flat. "In front of little kids. Made her cry." "I know. I made a terrible mistake. I need to apologize. Please, just 5 minutes." The door started to close. James put his hand against it, not forcing, not demanding, just asking. Pleading. "Please. My daughters, they're sitting on the floor, holding hands, waiting for her. They won't eat. Won't move. Won't sleep. I destroyed the only good thing in their lives and I need to make it right." Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then called over his shoulder. "Clara. That rich guy is here." Footsteps. Then Clara appeared in the doorway behind her brother. When she saw James, her expression went cold, guarded. The warmth he'd seen in his kitchen, the radiance, the joy, was completely gone. "What do you want, Mr. Whitmore?" "To apologize. To beg you to come back." "No." Simple. Final. A door slamming shut. "Clara, please. You didn't just fire me, Mr. Whitmore." Her voice was steady but her eyes glistened with gathering tears. "You humiliated me. You made me feel like loving your daughters was wrong. Like caring about them, teaching them, making them happy was somehow overstepping boundaries. Do you know what that felt like? To pour everything into 4 little girls and then be told I was being inappropriate." James's throat tightened, his hands trembling at his sides. "I was angry at myself, not you. I saw them so happy and I realized," his voice broke completely. "I realized a stranger had done what their own father couldn't. And instead of being grateful, instead of thanking you, I destroyed it." Clara stepped closer, her voice dropping to something quiet but devastating. "You don't hate me, Mr. Whitmore. You hate that your daughters are happy without you. You hate that they look like your wife but they're learning to love someone else. And most of all, you hate yourself for wishing they'd never been born." The words hit like a physical blow. James staggered backward, his shoulder hitting the hallway wall. Because every word was true. Every single word. "You're right." His voice was raw, broken, barely above a whisper. "You're right about all of it. When Rebecca died, I blamed them. For babies who needed me, who looked at me with her eyes, and all I could see was what they cost. What I lost. I've spent 18 months punishing them for surviving. For being here when she's not. And I don't know how to stop. Tears streamed down his face, the controlled, intimidating CEO completely shattered in a stranger's hallway. I don't know how to be their father. I don't know how to love them the way Rebecca would have. But Clara, please, they need you. I need you. Not because I'm paying you. Not because you work for me. Because I need someone to show me how to show up for them. How to be what they deserve. Clara's sister appeared behind her, a baby on her hip, watching the scene with wary eyes. Clara, you don't owe him anything. I know, Clara whispered, her own tears falling now. But I owe them. She looked back at James, her expression softening just slightly. If I come back, and I mean if, things change completely. No more 16-hour days. No more choosing mergers over bedtimes. No more business trips during the week. You show up. Every single day. You learn their favorite songs, their fears, which one likes grapes and which one picks them out. You sit on the floor and play with them even when it's hard. Even when looking at them hurts. James nodded, his face wet with tears he didn't bother wiping away. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll restructure everything. Cut back on travel. Work from home. I'll be there. I swear to you, Clara. I swear. Clara studied his face, searching for truth, for sincerity, for genuine change. Finally, she exhaled slowly. 1 week. Give me 1 week to think about it. Clara. 1 week, Mr. Whitmore. If you really mean this, you can wait 7 days. And in those 7 days, you sit with your daughters. You look at them, really look at them. You tell them about their mother. You hold them when they cry. You prove to me that you're ready to be their father. James drove home with something he hadn't felt in 18 months, purpose. When he walked through the penthouse door, the girls were still on the nursery floor, still waiting in their perfect row, still holding hands. James knelt in front of them, his knees touching the carpet where they sat. Clara isn't coming today. But I am. And I'm going to tell you about your mom. About how much she loved you before she even met you. About how she gave her life so you could have yours. And I'm going to stay. I promise. I'm not leaving anymore. Ivy's eyes flickered. Just slightly. The briefest flash of something, hope, maybe, or possibility. It wasn't much. But it was a start. 7 days later, Clara walked through the penthouse door. The girls screamed, actual, joyful, uninhibited screams, and ran to her with arms outstretched. But this time, they didn't let go of their father's hands. They pulled him with them, their tiny fingers gripping tight, creating a circle that included everyone. James knelt beside Clara as all 4 girls pressed against both of them, crying and laughing simultaneously, their bodies shaking with emotion. Thank you, James whispered to Clara, his voice thick with tears. Thank you for keeping them safe until I could get here. Clara's hand touched his shoulder gently, a gesture of forgiveness and partnership. Now let's teach you that song they've been waiting to sing. Thank you for watching till the end. Click subscribe and let me know the lessons you learned in the comment below and turn on the notification bell because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it.